A black janitor missed his interview to help a woman with a flat tire, completely unaware she was the company's CEO. The executive lobby of Jefferson Tower goes silent. 20 witnesses, marble floors that catch every sound. The kind of silence that sharpens humiliation into something you can feel in your chest. The janitor stands in the center of it all. Dark brown skin, graying temples, hands that still smell like industrial cleaner even though he scrubbed them twice. His work bag is open at his feet, the contents spilled across the floor for everyone to see. Across from him, Gordon Shipley, facilities manager, thinning hair, cheap suit worn like a uniform, points a finger like it's a weapon. "You've been stealing from this company," Shipley says, loud enough to make sure every executive in earshot can hear. And today, it ends. The janitor doesn't respond. He just stands there, shoulders squared, eyes level, calm in a way that doesn't make sense for a man being publicly destroyed. That's when someone in the crowd notices it. The way he's standing. Weight distributed perfectly, rooted to the ground like a building's foundation. Not the posture of someone who cleans floors for a living. The way his eyes move. Scanning the lobby ceiling. Tracing the junction points where the new expansion meets the old structure. Looking at the building the way a surgeon looks at a body. And his hands. Scarred, calloused, worn down by 6 years of mop buckets and trash bins. But the fingers long, precise, steady. The hands of someone who used to create things. Shipley doesn't see any of this. He's too busy performing for the crowd, feeding off the power imbalance, crushing a man he thinks is nobody. He has no idea who he's standing across from. And when a woman in a charcoal suit steps off the elevator and freezes mid-stride, recognition flashing across her face, everything is about to change. If you believe that kindness shouldn't be punished, stay with this story, because what happens next will restore your faith in justice when you need it most. Before we begin, hit subscribe and tell me in the comments. Have you ever helped someone and had it cost you everything? But to understand how a man capable of commanding a room ended up mopping its floors, we need to go back 6 hours to the moment he made a choice that would change his life forever. Marcus Webb pushed through the service entrance of Jefferson Tower at 4:30 in the morning, just like he had for the past 6 years. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead. The air smelled like floor wax and recycled air from the HVAC system. His footsteps echoed in the empty stairwell as he climbed to the 14th floor, a cart of cleaning supplies rattling behind him. He wore his Navy maintenance uniform. His name was stitched above the breast pocket in faded white thread. His hands were dark brown, calloused from years of gripping mop handles and hauling trash bins. His close-cropped hair was graying at the temples. His shoulders were broad but hunched in the way of a man who had learned to make himself smaller. The executive suite was quiet. No one here but him and the silence. Marcus moved through his routine without thinking. Empty the trash bins, wipe down the conference table, restock the paper towels in the break room, vacuum the carpets. The work was simple, repetitive, the kind of work that let his mind go somewhere else. He passed framed architectural renderings in the hallway, sleek glass towers, modern mixed-use developments, sustainable housing projects with green roofs and solar arrays. He didn't stop to look at them. Not anymore. By 7:15, the 14th floor was spotless. Marcus checked his phone. A text from Alia's grandmother, sent 3 hours ago. "She's asleep. Don't worry. Good luck tomorrow." He allowed himself a small smile. Alia, 12 years old. The only reason he got out of bed in the dark every single morning. He returned his cart to the custodial closet on the ground floor. Changed out of his uniform in the cramped space that smelled like bleach and lemon disinfectant. He pulled on jeans and a plain gray hoodie, civilian clothes, his off-duty skin. Marcus sat on the metal folding chair in the corner, pulled a folded stack of papers from his backpack. Interview materials, job description, benefits package, questions he'd found online. Tell me about yourself. Why do you want this position? Where do you see yourself in 5 years? He'd rehearsed his answers in his head 100 times. The facility supervisor job wasn't much. It was still cleaning buildings, but it was day shift, better pay, health insurance that would actually cover Alia's asthma medication without him having to choose between her inhaler and groceries. It was a step up, a step forward. The first step he'd allowed himself to take in 7 years. Marcus folded the papers, tucked them back into his bag, stood and stretched the stiffness from his back. Leon, the night security guard, was at his desk near the lobby exit, a black man in his 60s with kind eyes and a thermos of coffee that never seemed to run out. "Heading out early today," Leon said. "Got that interview at 9. Leon grinned. "That's right, facilities supervisor. Moving on up, huh?" "Trying to." You'll do fine. You're the best worker they got in this building. They'd be lucky to have you. Marcus nodded. Didn't know what to say to that. He wasn't used to people noticing him. Thanks, Leon. Good luck, brother. Marcus pushed through the glass doors into the cool morning air. The sky was starting to lighten. Detroit was waking up around him. Traffic on the streets. The distant sound of a delivery truck backing up somewhere. He walked to his car. A 2008 Honda Civic with a dent in the passenger door and a crack in the windshield he couldn't afford to fix. It ran. That was all that mattered. He sat behind the wheel. Checked the time on his phone. 7:45.90 minutes until the interview. He could do this. Drive home. Shower. Change into the button-down shirt and slacks he'd ironed last night. Grab coffee. Drive back. Plenty of time. Marcus started the engine. Pulled out of the employee lot. Took the service road that ran behind Jefferson Tower, the route he always drove. Less traffic. Faster. He allowed himself to feel it. Just for a moment. Hope. The fragile, dangerous kind of hope that came from believing today might be different. The service road was nearly empty when Marcus spotted the car. A black sedan sat on the shoulder, hazard lights blinking. A woman crouched beside the rear tire, her phone pressed to her ear. She wore a charcoal suit that looked expensive even from a distance. Her natural hair was styled in a professional twist out. Her medium brown skin caught the morning light as she stood, frustration written across her face. Marcus slowed, checked his watch. 8:17, he had time. Barely. If he stopped, if he helped, he'd lose his window to go home and change. He'd have to show up to the interview exactly as he was. The woman ended her call. Looked at the flat tire like it had personally betrayed her. Marcus pulled over. He got out of his Civic that the woman turned, sized him up in a glance. Marcus saw the brief flicker of caution in her eyes. A woman alone on a service road, a stranger approaching. He kept his distance, kept his hands visible. "Morning," he said. "Looks like you could use some help." The woman's shoulders relaxed slightly. "I could. My roadside service says 45 minutes minimum. I can change it faster than that." She studied him for a moment, then nodded. "I'd appreciate it. Thank you." Marcus walked to his trunk, pulled out his own jack and tire iron. Better tools than whatever came with her car. He moved to the sedan, knelt beside the flat. The woman stepped back, giving him room. "I'm Elena," she said. "Marcus." He positioned the jack. His hands moved with practiced efficiency. Loosen the lug nuts, lift the car, remove the flat. The rhythm of it was familiar, automatic. Elena watched him work. "You do this often?" "Used to help my neighbors when I was younger. You pick things up. Where do you work?" Marcus hesitated, glanced up at Jefferson Tower in the distance. At the building, down the road. Jefferson Tower? Yeah. "What do you do there?" He focused on the spare tire. Aligned it with the bolts. Maintenance. That wasn't a lie, just not the whole truth. Elena nodded. She pulled her phone from her pocket, checked something, then tucked it away. The morning air was cool. Traffic hummed on the main road a block over. Marcus tightened the lug nuts in a star pattern, lowered the jack, stood and wiped his hands on his jeans. "You're all set." Elena looked at the spare tire, then at him. "Thank you. Really, you saved me." She reached into her purse, pulled out her wallet. "No," Marcus said. "I don't need anything. Please, let me give you something for your time." "It's okay. Just glad I could help." Elena studied him again. Something shifted in her expression. Curiosity, maybe, or respect. "What's your full name?" she asked. "Marcus Webb." "Well, Marcus Webb, I owe you one." Marcus smiled, small and brief. "You don't owe me anything." He started to turn back to his car, then stopped. The interview, he should mention it, just in case she knew someone, just in case it mattered. "Actually," he said, "I'm heading to an interview at Jefferson Tower this morning, 9 o'clock, so I should probably get going." Elena's eyebrows lifted slightly. "An interview?" "Yeah, facility supervisor position." "Good for you. I hope it goes well." "Thanks, me too." Marcus walked back to his Civic Dodge, loaded his jack and tire iron into the trunk. Elena was still standing by her car, watching him. He gave her a small wave. She returned it. He got behind the wheel, started the engine, checked his phone. 8:42. The hope he'd felt 20 minutes ago twisted into something cold. There was no time to go home now. No time to shower. No time to change into the button-down and slacks hanging on his bedroom door. He'd have to drive straight to Jefferson Tower and walk into that interview wearing jeans and a hoodie that smelled like bleach and sweat. Marcus pulled back onto the service road. His hands gripped the steering wheel. He'd done the right thing. He knew that. But doing the right thing had just cost him everything he couldn't afford to lose. Marcus pushed through the glass doors of Jefferson Tower's Human Resources Wing at 9:20. The waiting area was sterile. White walls, gray carpet, fluorescent lights that buzzed overhead. 4 people sat in chairs along the wall, all dressed in business attire, press shirts, blazers, the kind of clothes that said they'd prepared for this. Marcus stood at the receptionist's desk in his jeans and hoodie. His breath came short from sprinting across the parking lot. The faint smell of cleaning chemicals clung to his skin. The receptionist looked up, a young woman with neat cornrows and a polite smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "I'm here for the 9 o'clock interview," Marcus said. "Marcus Webb, facilities supervisor position." Her smile tightened. "Shipley has already started the interviews. He's very particular about punctuality." "I know. I'm sorry. There was an emergency. Is there any way I could still—" "I'll let him know you're here. Please have a seat." Marcus sat. The chair was hard plastic. The other candidates glanced at him, took in his casual clothes, then looked away. One man in a navy suit shifted in his seat, putting distance between them. The clock on the wall ticked forward. 9:25, 9:30, 9:40. Marcus kept his hands folded in his lap. His leg wanted to bounce. He held it still. At 10 o'clock, a door opened. A man emerged. White, mid-50s, thinning hair combed over to hide the bald spot. He wore a cheap suit that hung awkwardly on his narrow frame, the fabric shiny from too many wearings. His face was pinched. His eyes were cold. Gordon Shipley. Marcus had seen him around the building, had nodded to him in passing during shift changes. Shipley had never nodded back. "Marcus Webb?" Shipley said. Marcus stood. "Yes, sir." Shipley didn't move toward the interview room. He stayed in the doorway, one hand on the frame. The door remained open behind him. "You were scheduled for 9 o'clock. "I know. I'm sorry. I stopped to help someone on my way here. A woman had a flat tire and—" "There's always an excuse." The words hit like a slap. Shipley's voice was loud, intentionally loud. The other candidates could hear every word. "It's not an excuse, sir. Do you know how many people applied for this position?" Shipley stepped forward, his arms crossed over his chest. 63. 63 people who want to better themselves, who understand what an opportunity looks like. And you show up 20 minutes late in jeans. Marcus's jaw tightened. He kept his voice level. "I understand. If I could just explain, I don't need an explanation. I need someone reliable, someone who takes this seriously, someone who understands personal responsibility." The words hung in the air. Personal responsibility. The way Shipley said it felt deliberate, pointed. Marcus felt the weight of every eye in the waiting room. "This position requires professionalism," Shipley continued. "It requires someone who shows up on time, someone who respects other people's schedules. That's why we have standards. That's why we have expectations. Some people understand that, and some people don't." Marcus stood still. His hands hung at his sides. He didn't argue, didn't defend himself. He just absorbed it. "I'm sorry to have wasted your time," Shipley said. The apology sounded like an accusation. "But I don't think this is the right fit. Can I at least—" "We're done here, Mr. Webb." Silence. Marcus nodded once. Slow, final. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. He turned and walked toward the exit. Behind him, he heard Shipley call the next candidate's name. The man in the navy suit stood, smoothed his tie, walked past Marcus without meeting his eyes. Marcus pushed through the glass doors. The hallway stretched ahead of him, polished floors, framed artwork on the walls, the hum of voices from open office doors. He walked toward the elevators, pressed the down button. A group of executives passed him, 3 men in expensive suits, talking about a conference call. They didn't look at him. To them, he was invisible, just another maintenance worker in civilian clothes. The elevator arrived. Marcus stepped inside. He caught his reflection in the polished metal doors as they slid shut. A black man in his 40s with graying hair and tired eyes, wearing jeans that were starting to fray at the knees and a hoodie with a bleach stain on the sleeve. A man who cleaned floors for a living. A man who had just been told he wasn't good enough to clean them during the day. The elevator descended. Marcus leaned against the back wall, closed his eyes. When the doors opened on the ground floor, he walked through the lobby, past the security desk where Leon sat, past the marble columns and the glass atrium, past the employees and visitors who moved through the space like he wasn't there. For the first time in 6 years, Marcus Webb felt like he didn't exist at all. Elena Hartman stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of her corner office, looking out at the Detroit skyline. The morning sun reflected off glass towers. The city stretched out below her, busy and indifferent. Her phone sat on her desk. She'd been calling Marcus Webb's number for the past hour. It went straight to voicemail every time. She turned from the window, walked to her desk, opened her laptop and pulled up the building's security system. The footage loaded. Multiple camera angles. Lobby, elevators, parking garage, executive floors. She scrolled back to 8:30 that morning, started scanning through the lobby feed. At 9:20, a man appeared on screen. He pushed through the glass doors of the HR wing. His gait was rushed but controlled. He wore jeans and a hoodie. Elena paused the video. Zoomed in. Dark brown skin. Graying hair cut close. Broad shoulders. The same warm eyes she'd seen when he'd knelt beside her car and changed her tire without asking for anything in return. Marcus Webb. She watched him approach the receptionist, watched him sit in the waiting area, watched him wait. 40 minutes passed in fast forward. Then a man emerged from the interview room. Thinning hair. Cheap suit. Gordon Shipley. Elena leaned closer to the screen. Shipley stood in the doorway. His body language was aggressive, territorial. He gestured at Marcus. His mouth moved. Elena couldn't hear the words, but she could read the tone in the way Marcus's shoulders shifted, the way the other candidates in the waiting room looked away. 12 minutes later, Marcus walked out. His head was down. His hands hung loose at his sides. Elena froze the frame, zoomed in on his face. Defeat. She sat back in her chair, pulled her phone from her pocket and dialed her assistant. Kevin, I need you in my office. 3 minutes later, Kevin appeared in the doorway. He was young, efficient, always dressed in crisp white shirts and dark slacks. He carried a tablet and wore the expression of someone ready to execute tasks without asking unnecessary questions. Close the door, Elena said. Kevin did. He stood in front of her desk, waited. I need you to pull a personnel file, Marcus Webb, custodial staff. Kevin tapped on his tablet. His fingers moved quickly. A moment later, he looked up. Found him. Want me to send it to you? Print it. Bring it here. Kevin left, returned 5 minutes later with a folder. Thin. A few pages at most. Elena opened it. Marcus Webb. 6 years employment. Overnight custodial shift. 0 disciplinary actions. 0 commendations either. Just 6 years of invisible, unremarkable work. She pulled up the facility's supervisor interview list on her laptop, scanned the names. There it was, Marcus Webb. Scheduled for 9 a.m., she checked the timestamp on the security footage. He'd arrived at 9:20. 20 minutes late because he'd stopped to help her. Elena's jaw tightened. She looked at Kevin. Who conducted the facility's supervisor interviews this morning? Gordon Shipley. I want him to send me his hiring decision by end of day. I also want all surveillance footage from the HR floor this morning. Every camera. Full audio if available. Kevin hesitated. His tablet hovered in his hands. Is there a problem? Elena met his eyes. Her voice was calm, controlled. Just do it. Kevin nodded. Left. Elena turned back to her laptop, pulled up the security footage again. This time she enabled audio. Shipley's voice came through tinny but clear. There's always an excuse. I don't need an explanation. I need someone reliable. Some people don't understand personal responsibility. Elena's fingers gripped the edge of her desk. She watched Marcus stand there, silent, absorbing every word, apologizing for something that wasn't his fault. She rewound the footage, watched it again, and again. By the third viewing, her jaw was tight enough to ache. Marcus picked Aaliyah up from her grandmother's house at 5:30. She burst out the front door before he could even knock. 12 years old, light brown skin, her natural hair twisted into neat braids that her grandmother had redone that morning. She wore her favorite purple hoodie and jeans with patches on the knees. Dad! She hugged him tight. Marcus held her, breathed in the smell of cocoa butter and the strawberry shampoo her grandmother used. How was school? He asked. Good. We're doing fractions. I hate fractions. You're good at math. That doesn't mean I have to like it. They drove home through Corktown, past brick row houses and corner stores with handwritten signs in the windows. The neighborhood was quiet, working class, the kind of place where people knew their neighbors and looked out for each other. Their apartment was on the second floor of a narrow building with peeling paint and a landlord who fixed things slowly. 2 bedrooms, a kitchen, barely big enough for one person. Family photos on every wall. Aaliyah dropped her backpack by the door, turned to Marcus with bright eyes. How'd the interview go? Marcus opened the fridge, pulled out chicken and vegetables. It went fine. Did you get the job? They'll let me know. Aaliyah tilted her head, studied him the way she always did when she suspected something. Then why do you look sad? I'm not sad. I'm tired. Dad, Marcus set the chicken on the counter, started chopping an onion. The knife moved in steady, even strokes. Dad, did something bad happen? He stopped cutting, set the knife down, turned to face her. I didn't get the job. Aaliyah's face fell. Why not? I was late, and the man doing the interviews, he didn't think I was the right fit. But you're never late. You're the most on-time person I know. Marcus managed a small smile. I had to stop and help someone. It made me late. That's not fair. No, it's not. Aaliyah went quiet. She sat at the small kitchen table, her fingers tracing patterns on the worn surface. When she spoke again, her voice was smaller. Is it because of money? What? Is it because we don't have enough money? Because of me? Marcus crossed the kitchen in 3 steps, knelt in front of her chair, took her hands in his dark brown skin against her lighter brown. The same hands, the same long fingers. Listen to me, he said. This is not your fault, none of it. I just had bad timing today, that's all. We're going to be okay. But you needed that job. We'll manage. We always do. Aaliyah looked at him. Her eyes were her mother's, bright, searching, too perceptive for a 12-year-old. She reached into her backpack, pulled out a crumpled flyer. There's a field trip next month to the Architecture Museum downtown. It costs $20. Marcus took the flyer, unfolded it. The Detroit Museum of Design. A rendering of a modern building with clean lines and sustainable materials dominated the front page. He stared at it. Something in his chest tightened. Can I go? Aaliyah asked. Marcus forced himself to breathe. Yeah, of course. I'll make it work. You sure? I'm sure. Aaliyah hugged him. Marcus held her, his chin resting on top of her head. After dinner, after homework, after Aaliyah brushed her teeth and climbed into bed, Marcus sat alone at the kitchen table. The apartment was quiet. Just the hum of the refrigerator and the occasional sound of footsteps from the unit above. Marcus opened the drawer beneath the table, pulled out a sketchbook. The cover was worn. The pages yellowed at the edges. He'd bought it 7 years ago and barely touched it since. He opened it. The first pages were filled with blueprints, detailed architectural drawings in precise pencil lines, measurements, calculations, notes in his own handwriting, buildings he'd designed, buildings that stood in Detroit's skyline. Marcus ran his fingers over the paper. The graphite smudged slightly under his touch. He turned the pages slowly, each one a memory, each one a reminder of who he used to be. Then he stopped. The rest of the sketchbook was blank, 7 years of blank pages. Marcus closed the book, placed it back in the drawer, shut it. He stood, walked to the small bookshelf beside the couch, picked up a framed photograph. Simone. She smiled at the camera. Dark brown skin, natural hair and locks that fell past her shoulders. She wore a blazer and held a stack of legal files. The photo had been taken outside the courthouse where she worked. Marcus touched the glass, his fingertips resting where her face was. I'm trying, he whispered. The apartment didn't answer. Over the next 3 days, Elena watched. She arrived at the office late on Tuesday night, 10:30 p.m. The building was quiet except for the hum of the HVAC system and the distant sound of a vacuum cleaner on the floor above. She pulled up the security feeds on her laptop, switched between cameras until she found him, Marcus Webb, on the 14th floor. He pushed a cart down the hallway, stopped at each office, emptied trash bins with methodical efficiency. His dark brown skin caught the fluorescent light. His movements were precise, unhurried. Elena watched him pause in front of a framed architectural rendering, a mixed-use development with sustainable features. Marcus stood there for nearly a minute. His eyes traced the lines of the building, the way the structure met the foundation, the angle of the solar panels on the roof. He didn't touch the frame, just looked. Then he moved on. Wednesday morning, Elena left her office at 2 a.m. She walked the 14th floor herself. The hallways were empty, the lights dimmed to night mode. She found Marcus in the executive break room. He stood on the stepladder, examining a water-damaged ceiling panel. His fingers touched the discolored tile carefully, testing the edges, checking for moisture. Elena stayed in the shadows, watched. Marcus climbed down, found a notepad and pen from his cart, wrote something in neat, precise handwriting, left the note on the counter where maintenance would find it. Elena waited until he moved to the next room. Then she crossed to the counter, Read the note. Water damage in ceiling panel, D7. Source likely compromised pipe junction in the mechanical room directly above, northwest corner. Check for pressure, irregularity in the HVAC condensation line. Recommend immediate inspection before structural integrity is affected. The language was technical, specific, not the words of someone who just mopped floors. Elena folded the note, slipped it into her pocket. Thursday afternoon, she entered Marcus's custodial closet, the small room on the ground floor where he stored his supplies and changed clothes before his shift. The space was cramped. It smelled like bleach and industrial soap. A metal locker stood against one wall, a folding chair in the corner. Elena opened the locker. Inside, a spare uniform, a thermos, a framed photo of a young girl with bright eyes and twisted braids. Aliyah and books. An urban planning textbook with highlighted passages. Notes in the margins in the same handwriting from the ceiling panel report. A worn copy of The Death and Life of Great American Cities by Jane Jacobs. Pages dog-eared. Entire sections underlined. Elena pulled out her phone, photographed the spines, closed the locker. Back in her office, she opened her laptop, typed Marcus Webb Architect into the search bar. The results loaded. Article from 2014, Rising Star of Sustainable Architecture, Marcus Webb's Vision for Urban Renewal. Profile from 2015. At 35, Marcus Webb is reshaping Detroit's skyline with buildings that breathe. A TED Talk. The Future of Sustainable Urban Design. 2.1 million views. Elena clicked on the TED Talk, pressed play. A man appeared on screen, Marcus Webb, 7 years younger. He wore a tailored suit, stood on stage with quiet confidence. His voice was steady, assured. He spoke about buildings as living systems, about architecture that served communities, not just developers. The camera captured his hands as he gestured. The same hands that changed her tire. The same hands that mopped the 14th floor. Elena watched the entire 18-minute talk. When it ended, she sat back in her chair, stared at the frozen image of Marcus on her screen. Then she searched for more. Obituary from 2018. Simone Webb, civil rights attorney, killed in a traffic accident. Survived by her husband, architect Marcus Webb, and daughter Aliyah, age 5. A memorial fund established in her name. Donations accepted in lieu of flowers. No articles about Marcus after that. No new projects. No interviews. He disappeared from the public record entirely. Elena's phone buzzed. A text from Kevin Shipley submitted his formal decision. All candidates rejected. Position will be reposted next quarter. Elena's jaw tightened. She typed back. Send me documentation of Marcus Webb's work performance. Everything Shipley has filed. The response came 3 minutes later. A PDF attachment. Elena opened it. Read through the complaints Shipley had logged over the past 3 days. Tuesday, trash bin on executive floor not emptied by end of shift. Wednesday, cleaning supplies left unattended in hallway. Thursday, failure to restock paper towels in third floor restroom, petty, manufactured. The kind of infractions you documented when you wanted to build a case against someone. Elena closed the file, pulled up the live security feed, found Marcus on camera. He was on the 11th floor now, mopping the hallway outside the conference rooms. His movements were steady, routine, the movements of a man who had done this work for 6 years without complaint. She opened the TED Talk again, played a section in the middle. Marcus on stage, mid-presentation, gesturing at a slide of a building he'd designed. The riverfront commons, clean lines, green roof, solar integration. His voice filled with passion as he explained how architecture could heal communities. Elena paused the video, looked at the live feed. The same man. One on stage, changing the world. The other mopping floors, invisible. She pulled up the photo she'd taken of the books in his locker, zoomed in on the highlighted passages, read his margin notes. They were recent, within the past year. He was still studying, still learning, still thinking like an architect even while pushing a mop. Elena leaned back in her chair. The Detroit skyline stretched out beyond her windows. She thought about the man who'd changed her tire without asking for anything. The man who'd been humiliated in a waiting room for being 20 minutes late. The man who examined water damage with the eyes of someone who understood buildings from the inside out. Marcus Webb wasn't just a janitor. He never had been. Elena closed the TED Talk, pulled up the live security feed again. Watched Marcus push his cart down another hallway, his broad shoulders hunched, his graying head down. And for the first time in 3 days, she knew exactly what she was going to do. Marcus walked into Jefferson Tower's executive lobby at 10:15 on Friday morning. He never came during the day. The sunlight poured through the glass atrium, making the marble floors gleam. Executives moved through the space in pressed suits and polished shoes. The hum of conversation filled the air. Everyone busy. Everyone important. Marcus wore jeans and a flannel shirt. He carried his work bag over one shoulder. He was there to pick up his paycheck from HR before his shift started. In and out. Quick. He made it halfway across the lobby before Gordon Shipley stepped in front of him. Marcus Webb. Shipley's voice was loud, deliberately loud. Heads turned. Marcus stopped. Mr. Shipley, I need to speak with you. I'm just here to get my check. That can wait. Shipley's arms crossed over his chest. His face was tight, angry. We have a problem. Marcus felt the eyes on him, a dozen people slowing their pace, watching. What kind of problem? There's a box of printer paper missing from the executive floor. High-quality stock. Expensive. It was there on Tuesday, gone on Wednesday. Marcus's jaw tightened. I don't know anything about that. You were the only custodial worker on that floor Tuesday night. I emptied trash and restocked supplies. That's it. Shipley stepped closer. His voice rose another notch. You understand what I'm saying, don't you? Office supplies don't just walk off on their own. Someone took them. The lobby wasn't quiet, but the space around Marcus and Shipley was. A circle of silence. People pretending not to listen while hanging on every word. I didn't take anything, Marcus said. Then you won't mind emptying your bag. Marcus looked at Shipley, then at the crowd forming around them. Security guards by the entrance. Executives paused mid-conversation, visitors with guest badges watching from the waiting area. That's not appropriate, Marcus said quietly. It's very appropriate. We have a theft issue. You're the logical suspect. Empty the bag and we can clear this up right now. I'm not doing that. Shipley's face reddened. You're refusing. I'm saying this isn't the way to handle this. This is exactly how we handle this. People like us have rules. We have standards. And when those standards aren't met, there are consequences. Marcus stood still. His hands hung at his sides. The bag over his shoulder felt heavier with every second. You've been getting away with things for too long, Shipley continued. His voice carried across the marble. Showing up late, making excuses. Half-finished work. And now this. I've been documenting everything. Every single infraction. A woman in a navy suit emerged from the elevator, medium brown skin, natural hair and a professional twist out, sharp features. Elena Hartman. She stopped at the edge of the crowd, watched. Shipley didn't notice her. You know what I think? He said. I think that missed interview was deliberate. I think some people sabotage themselves because they know they're not good enough. They know they don't belong in positions of responsibility. The crowd shifted, uncomfortable, but no one spoke. As of right now, Shipley said, you're terminated. Effective immediately. Leave your bag with security. They'll search it. If we find what I think we're going to find, we'll be pressing charges. Marcus breathed. In, out. His chest rose and fell. His hands stayed loose. Then he spoke. Quiet, steady. Did you report the ceiling panel? Shipley blinked. What? The water-damaged panel in the executive break room. I left a note for maintenance. Did you report it? That's irrelevant. It's not. Marcus's voice deepened. Not louder. Just more certain. The water damage indicates a compromised support beam in the floor above, from the recent expansion. If it's not addressed, the structural integrity of the entire junction point is at risk. Shipley's face twisted. You're deflecting. This is about theft, not building maintenance. No, Marcus said. This is about you trying to get rid of me because you're embarrassed, because you made a mistake, because you dismissed someone you shouldn't have. I didn't make a mistake. The ceiling panel is directly below the mechanical room. The condensation line is under pressure. It's creating microfractures in the support beam. You can see the stress pattern in the marble cladding down here if you know what to look for. Shipley laughed. Sharp, bitter. You're a janitor. You don't know what you're talking about. I know exactly what I'm talking about. Elena Hartman stepped forward. Her heels clicked on the marble. The crowd parted. Explain, she said. Marcus turned, saw her. Recognition flashed across his face. Elena's expression was calm, controlled. She looked at Marcus. You said the expansion created a structural flaw. Explain what you mean. Marcus looked at Elena Hartman, the woman whose tire he'd changed, the woman who'd thanked him without knowing his name. You need a napkin, he said, and a pen. Someone from the crowd handed him both, a cocktail napkin from the lobby cafe, a ballpoint pen. Marcus set the napkin on the marble floor, knelt beside it. The crowd pressed closer. He drew a single line, vertical. then another crossing it at an angle. His dark brown hands moved with precision, no hesitation, each stroke deliberate. "This is the original building," he said. His voice was quiet but steady. "This is the expansion that was added last year." He sketched the junction point where the two structures met, added cross-hatching to indicate load transfer, marked stress points with small X's. "The load from the new floors has to transfer through this beam here." But the contractor used W114 steel sections instead of W16. They're not rated for the compression load. The condensation line from the HVAC runs directly underneath. When it pressurizes, it creates vibration. Small, constant. Over time, it weakens the connection. Marcus pointed to the marble floor beneath them. "You can see the stress pattern in the cladding. Hairline cracks. They start here, by the elevator bank, and run diagonal toward the northwest corner. That's where the beam is failing." Elena looked down. Her eyes traced the marble. The cracks were there. Faint. Easy to miss if you weren't looking. "But there. Someone get engineering up here," Elena said. A man in a gray suit pulled out his phone, made a call. 3 minutes later, the building's chief engineer arrived. A stocky man in his 60s with wire-rimmed glasses and a tablet tucked under his arm. He pushed through the crowd, looked at Marcus, then at the napkin. Marcus stood, handed him the sketch. The engineer studied it. His face went pale. He pulled out his tablet, opened the building plans, cross-referenced the junction point Marcus had drawn. "Where did you get this information?" the engineer asked. "I didn't get it anywhere," Marcus said. "I see it every night when I clean. The water damage in the break room ceiling, the cracks in the marble, the way the elevator vibrates when it reaches the 14th floor, it all points to the same problem." The engineer zoomed in on the digital plans, checked the steel specifications. His fingers moved quickly across the screen. Then he stopped. "He's right," the engineer said. His voice was thin. "The contractor submitted specs for W6 sections, but the inspection photos show W14. They cut corners, saved money, and we signed off on it." The lobby went completely still. Shipley stepped forward. His face was red. "That's impossible." He's right," the engineer repeated, louder this time. "The beam is compromised. We need to close the 14th floor immediately and bring in structural reinforcement before this gets worse." Elena's expression didn't change, but her eyes shifted to Shipley, cold, assessing. Then she looked at Marcus. "How do you know this?" she asked. Marcus didn't answer. "You examined a water stain and diagnosed a structural flaw that our engineering team missed. You identified the exact steel section used. You mapped the load transfer through a building you don't have access to the plans for." Elena's voice was calm. "Precise." "How?" Marcus's jaw tightened. He looked at the crowd. 20 faces. 30, all watching him. "You designed buildings," Elena said. Not a question, a statement. The crowd murmured. Marcus nodded, once small. "What buildings?" Elena asked. Marcus exhaled. His shoulders dropped slightly, like a man who'd been holding his breath for years. "The Riverfront Commons," he said quietly. "The Detroit Medical Innovation Center. The East Side Community Hub." Someone in the crowd gasped. Others pulled out their phones. Elena's expression shifted. Recognition, she'd known, but hearing him say it made it real. "Marcus Webb," she said. His name sounded different in her voice now. Not a janitor's name. An architect's. "You designed the Riverfront Commons." "Yes. You were at Grayson and Associates. I was a partner. You had a TED Talk." Marcus didn't respond. A woman in the crowd held up her phone. On the screen, a video played. Marcus, 7 years younger, standing on a stage in a tailored suit. The title read, "The Future of Sustainable Urban Design." "That's him," someone whispered. The murmurs grew louder. Phones came out, screens lit up. Marcus's face appeared on a dozen devices. Articles, interviews, award ceremonies. The architect who disappeared. Shipley tried to speak. "This doesn't change. Be quiet," Elena said. She didn't raise her voice. Didn't need to. Shipley's mouth shut. Elena looked at Marcus, really looked at him. Not the janitor. The man. "Why are you mopping floors?" she asked. The question hung in the air. Simple. Devastating. Marcus's hand went to his back pocket, pulled out his wallet, opened it. Inside, a photo. A young girl with braids and a bright smile. He didn't answer. He didn't need to. Gordon Shipley was terminated that afternoon. Marcus was placed on paid administrative leave while Jefferson Properties conducted an internal review. The structural flaw he'd identified was real. The contractor had cut corners. The building needed immediate reinforcement. Elena called Marcus into her office 3 days later. He sat across from her desk. The Detroit skyline stretched out behind her. Morning light poured through the floor-to-ceiling windows. Marcus wore the same jeans and flannel shirt he'd worn in the lobby, his only good clothes. Elena slid a folder across the desk. Consultancy contract. 6 months. You review every building in our portfolio for structural issues. Full access. Full authority. Marcus opened the folder. Read the first page. The salary was more than he'd made in 2 years of custodial work. I haven't practiced in 7 years, he said. The building spoke to you, Elena said. You saw what our engineers missed. That doesn't go away just because you stopped using it. Marcus's fingers traced the edge of the paper. I'm not sure I can. You already did, in front of 40 witnesses. Elena leaned forward. You never stopped being an architect, Marcus. You just stopped believing you deserved to be one. Marcus looked at her. The woman whose tire he'd changed. The woman who'd seen him dismissed and humiliated. The woman who'd watched him sketch a structural flaw on a napkin and recognized what it meant. Why are you doing this? He asked. Because you helped me when you had everything to lose. Because you were right about the building. Because talent like yours doesn't deserve to be wasted mopping floors. Elena's voice softened. And because I looked into what happened to your wife. I'm sorry. Marcus's jaw tightened. He nodded once. Think about it, Elena said. The offer stands for 48 hours. Marcus took the folder home. Read it 3 times. Talked to Aaliyah's grandmother. Stared at Simone's photo on the bookshelf. Then he signed it. 3 months later, Marcus sat in a bright office on the 12th floor of Jefferson Tower. His desk faced the windows. Natural light poured in. Aaliyah's artwork covered one wall. Crayon drawings, watercolors, a construction paper cut out of a house she'd made in 2nd grade. His desk was covered with blueprints, a mixed-use affordable housing project, green roofs, solar integration, community spaces designed to bring people together. The kind of building Simone would have loved. The door opened. Aaliyah walked in, backpack slung over one shoulder. Her braids had been redone. She wore her purple hoodie and a smile that lit up the room. Hey, Dad. Hey, baby. How was school? Good. We did fractions again. Still hate them. Marcus smiled. Homework? Yeah. Aaliyah dropped her backpack on the small couch by the window, pulled out her math folder, settled in at the corner of his desk. She looked at the blueprints. What's this one? Housing project, 60 units. Designed for families who need affordable places to live. Like us, like a lot of people. Aaliyah studied the drawings. Her finger traced the green roof. Will it have a garden? Community garden. Residents can grow vegetables, share what they harvest. Mom would have liked that. Marcus's hands stilled on the blueprint. Yeah, she would have. Aaliyah looked at him. Do you think about her? Every day. Do you think she'd be proud of you for doing this again? Marcus's throat tightened. I hope so. I think she would be. Aaliyah went back to her homework. Simple, matter of fact. The way kids said profound things without realizing their weight. That Saturday, Marcus took Aaliyah to the Detroit Museum of Design. The field trip she'd wanted to go on, the one that cost $20 he couldn't afford 3 months ago. They walked through exhibits on sustainable architecture, urban planning, buildings that served communities. Aaliyah asked questions. Marcus answered them, patiently, thoroughly, the way he used to when she was small, and asked why the sky was blue. Then they turned a corner, and there it was, a scale model of the riverfront commons, his building, clean lines, green roof. The structure that had made his name 7 years ago. Aaliyah stopped, stared at it. Read the placard. Designed by Marcus Webb, Grayson and Associates Architecture. Completed 2016. She looked at her father. You made this? I did. It's beautiful. Marcus knelt beside her, pointed to specific features, the solar panels, the rainwater collection system, the way the building opened to the riverfront, creating public space where there had been none before. Your mom helped design the community legal clinic on the ground floor, he said. She wanted people to have access to legal help, right there, in their neighborhood. Aaliyah's eyes went to the model. I wish I remembered her better. She loved you more than anything in the world. That's what matters. They stood there for a long time, father and daughter, looking at a building that represented everything Marcus had been and everything he'd walked away from. Can we go see it? Aaliyah asked. The real one? Yeah, we can go see it. They drove to the riverfront, parked, walked along the path until the riverfront commons rose in front of them. Glass and steel and purpose. People moved in and out. Families, workers. A community center on the ground floor buzzed with activity. The sun was starting to set. The sky turned orange and pink. The Detroit River reflected the light. Marcus and Aaliyah stood at the railing. The city stretched out around them, his buildings part of the skyline. Are you going to make more? Aaliyah asked. Marcus looked at his daughter, 12 years old, light brown skin, bright eyes. The reason he got up every morning. The reason he'd survived the worst thing that had ever happened to him. Yes, he said. Aaliyah smiled, leaned against the railing. Marcus stood beside her. He reached into his wallet, pulled out the photo of Simone, looked at it, her smile, her locks, her eyes that had seen the best in everyone. He touched the photo, then put it back in his wallet, slipped the wallet into his pocket, reached down, took Aaliyah's hand. Together they turned from the river and walked toward home.